I honestly think that this was the most unfortunate episode of Pokémon Horizons thus far. The first one to truly make me feel really bad for a character. Roy lost his battle, which is okay since it's not only an outcome that was very much possible, meaning that I expected it to some extent, but it's also something that Roy is quite familiar with. He has tasted defeat countless times already, and he was always able to still crack a smile despite the unfavorable outcome and regardless of how well he did. Plus, I was sure that even if he lost, he would still pass his test. However, this time, losing came with a very somber taste. Not only was he completely and utterly crushed, which even made him question himself, but he also failed his test. Shockingly so, and he was told that he is not a suitable partner for Fuecoco, that he is holding him back and preventing him from realizing his true potential. All of this left Roy shocked, depressed, and broken spiritually, which is especially difficult to see considering the kind of character he is. One who can always smile no matter how dire or sad his circumstances may be. Even such a positive and optimistic character like him was left utterly shattered and demoralized. Throw in the fact that Kilowattrel was completely disrespected, even more than Tinkatink, which I did not think was possible considering that she did bad enough as it is, and that every single battle we got was honestly terrible, at least in my opinion, and you get an episode that I simply cannot praise in any way. An episode that left me feeling horribly disappointed. So let's break down the episode. I will tell you exactly what happened and what went wrong. Right away, as Liko and friends continue on their way to Montenevera, the stage is set for the disaster to come when Roy and Fuecoco singing is brought into focus. Singing gives them strength and courage. It powers up Fuecoco, and their mutual love for it proves that they were meant to be partners. These are all things that will come into question by the end of the episode, so this is basically just set up for that, which I would like to say I appreciate from a narrative standpoint, but I can't, given what it leads to, but more on this later. So they get to Montenevera and nothing out of the ordinary happens. They marvel at the unique look and vibe of the town, they learn from a couple of locals of its history and special festival, they try to find Ryme to no avail, they get to meet an adorable group of Greebird, Terapagos is kidnapped and then saved by Nemona and Palmot who happen to be in town for the festival, proving wrong my prediction that Nemona was here specifically to see Roy's battle. Though it doesn't change the fact that obviously the writers chose to have her be here because she is integral to Roy's growth, since she is his rival. Together with Nemona, they head to the festival to find Ryme, and once more she is nowhere to be seen. Roy does get to battle MC Sledge though, which is, well, almost completely pointless. I say pointless because I was expecting a lot more. Sledge chooses Sableye, who uses Power Gem and Shadow Claw back to back. Fuecoco easily avoids both attacks, and after singing with Roy, he one-shots Sableye with Flame Charge, meaning that the battle is done in a flash. It is not fun or exciting whatsoever, and it features no intensity or stakes. Now I say almost pointless because this battle does serve a purpose. It shows that singing does make Roy and Fuecoco stronger, at least on the surface. It shows that this really is the ace under their sleeves. This sets up what's to come, especially considering that Ryme, who blended into the crowd as the battle started, shows concern. This reveals to us that something does not bode well for Roy and Fuecoco. So with this warm-up excuse of a battle out of the way, Ryme finally reveals herself and takes the stage, shocking Roy, who of course had already met her. This is a reaction I wanted to see. And I love that he reveals to her that he did end up meeting the Annihilate she told them about. Roy wastes no time in requesting to battle her. She accepts, but only if he first takes her on in a rap battle, which he willingly does. Their rapping is honestly really cool, just like Ryme's initial rap when she got on stage. Props to both voice actors. I have to say that I'm now quite curious about what the English dub for this episode will be like. Surely the rapping will remain, but I wonder if maybe they will have to change the lyrics. So Roy aces the rap battle, which is not surprising. His success means he can battle Ryme. Her first Pokemon is Houndstone, while Roy goes with Kilowattrel. I appreciate that Ryme notes that Wattrel evolved, considering that she did see it pre-evolution and she even offered words of encouragement to it. I love when there is continuity like this between episodes. Sadly though, this is another pointless battle since Kilowattrel simply uses Spark back to back, Houndstone avoids every single one, the last one with Phantom Force, which allows it to also get behind Kilowattrel, seemingly landing a hit in the process, at which point it uses Crunch to defeat Kilowattrel. So this is another unexciting battle that ends quickly, basically also with a one-shot, which makes me wonder why they even bothered to include it. Now with the previous one, I'm willing to let such a lackluster display slide because we've seen Fuecoco battle plenty of times, and MC Sledge is a minor character and not the gym leader that is Roy's main opponent. However, this time I cannot forgive such a lame excuse of a battle. This was Kilowattrel's first serious battle, and its first battle after evolving. This was its chance, its time to shine. And yet, look what happened. It was completely disrespected. Like the battle didn't even last a minute. What was even the point of making the implementation test require 2 Pokemon? You would think it was to let the second Pokemon finally have a chance to do something. Yet Tinkatink got wrecked without getting to do much, and Kilowattrel was destroyed after doing even less. At this point, I'm half expecting that Hattrem will also be treated like this. Obviously, I am not okay with this at all. Kilowattrel and the Tinkatink both deserved so much better. Kilowattrel especially. So obviously with Kilowattrel out, Fuecoco has to step up. Like before, he and Roy sing, which somehow makes Fuecoco immune to Scary Face. It also once again makes Ryme, and this time Nemona too, look discontent. Fuecoco and Houndstone then clash with Flame Charge and Crunch respectively. Houndstone uses Phantom Force to once again appear behind its opponent, but having seen this trick already, Fuecoco turns around and he uses Flamethrower to end the battle. So yet again, another battle that ends in a heartbeat, in under a minute. Why even bother to make this a 2-on-2 battle if this is what we get? I'd much rather have a good one-on-one battle than a mediocre 2-on-2 one. Clearly, they needed to allot more time to this battle. So Ryme wonders why Roy and Fuecoco sing. He says it's to get stronger, to win. He also proclaims that this makes them unbeatable, which makes him sound uncharacteristically conceited and full of himself. Plus, it also makes it obvious he is in for a rude awakening. The battle then resumes with Ryme sending out her ace, Toxtricity. After singing yet again, which is once more not amusing to Nemona or Ryme, Fuecoco uses Stomping Tantrum and Flamethrower, but Toxtricity repels both with Overdrive. Fuecoco tries Flame Charge next, but this is also repelled, this time with Boomburst. Toxtricity's ability Punk Rock is to blame for all of this. Roy is concerned since nothing they do works even after singing. Ryme taunts him, telling him that singing is supposed to make them stronger, right? Roy and Fuecoco double down on their strategy and Fuecoco uses disarming voice. But as a poison type with punk rock, Toxtricity is completely unfazed and it fights back with Hex and Overdrive. The former is avoided, but the latter finds its mark. Backed into a corner, Roy uses Terrastal out of desperation, which is obviously not good and it foreshadows the unfortunate outcome that follows. I knew at this point that Roy was cooked. It doesn't help that Ryme continues to taunt him, this time saying that using Terrastal like this won't get him closer to his dream. So Toxtricity uses Venoshock and Overdrive to defeat Fuecoco before he can do anything. Now this battle was obviously better than the previous two, which is not really saying much since it's a very low bar to clear, and it's mostly due to it not ending in one hit. However, it is still far from being the kind of battle I like and want to see, and far from what I expected and hoped for. Though I guess it being so one-sided is partly to blame for this, and it was so one-sided to serve the narrative, which does make it easier to forgive. So Roy is left in shock. To add insult to injury, Ryme calls him a failure of a partner since he cannot bring out Fuecoco's full potential. Ouch. This really cuts deep. Especially considering that this series is quite lighthearted for the most part. I did not expect it to get so dark and serious all of a sudden. Nor did I think Ryme could be such a savage. Ryme also declares that Roy fails the test, making him the first one of the group to do this. Ryme resumes the festival like nothing happened after telling Roy to wash his soul and come back. The episode ends with Roy despairing upon reflecting on what Ryme told him. I do find it curious that Nemona glances at Ryme while looking serious. Makes me think that maybe she thinks Ryme was too blunt, potentially discouraging Roy, who Nemona sees as a rival with a lot of potential. Nemona disapproves of how she went about teaching Roy a lesson. This is especially interesting considering that Nemona herself seemed to look down on the way Roy battled. Now, I'm all for the main characters not having plot armor. Like, them passing every test regardless of the outcome is boring, unrealistic, and too idealistic. Not to mention it robs the characters of chances to truly grow. After all, failure fuels the desire to get better. So I'm okay with Roy losing. Really, I am. It's the way they went about it that I take issue with. Suddenly, Roy and Fuecoco singing is a bad thing, even though this has been their defining trait thus far and it has always been a source of strength, courage, and friendship for them. Even the episode before this one reinforced this. So why is it bad out of nowhere? Just to set him up to fail? It feels made up on the spot just to have an excuse to justify him losing and failing, which is just wrong. Did they set it up well throughout the episode? Yes. But this does not change the fact that it feels like this was all pulled out of a hat trim for this episode specifically. Moreover, I don't think Roy is cocky or conceited. Yet this episode made him come across as such, clearly just to make his downfall feel more deserved. I don't think it's right or acceptable to blatantly alter a character's personality or the established parameters of their story and development just to serve a sudden narrative requirement. Therefore, I cannot approve of or like this episode at all. I adamantly refuse to do this. So yeah, overall this episode was honestly horrible. Almost all the battles were terrible. The only one that wasn't can only be considered alright at best. The changes made to Roy's personality and his connection to Fuecoco came out of nowhere, making them feel poorly constructed just because they apparently needed someone to take an L to avoid having this journey be completely without failure. Ryme being so blunt with Roy just feels awful. I'm with Nemona on this one. Even if her intentions are good, she went too far, crushing Roy's spirit unnecessarily. Calling him a failure of a partner after we have seen so much evidence that clearly contradicts this, even in the episode just before this one, feels like a slap to the face. It discredits and disrespects Roy and Fuecoco and their bond badly. So this episode missed the mark completely for me. It was narratively awful and devoid of logic. The battles were mostly terrible and it left me feeling bad for Roy and extremely disappointed. The next episode better be something special, because it has a lot to make up for. But that's the review and the video. Please let me know what you think of this episode in the comments below, and click on the links on screen now to see my reviews of the previous 3 episodes. I will see you over there. Thank you so very much for watching.